After months of rejection emails, you were at your wits' end. Rent was due, your bills were piling up, and your fridge was practically screaming from emptiness. So you applied to every job you could find: admin assistant, office manager, even some vague postings that sounded questionable but paid well. When one of them came back with an enthusiastic "Congratulations, you're hired," you barely glanced at the details before replying, "When can I start?" A day later, you found yourself standing in front of a towering building that oozed expensive and screamed, "Do not enter if you value your life." You stood your mouth open. "I can't believe I got accepted here. Maybe it's a law firm." You mumbled to yourself as you stepped inside. Little did you know, you were about to meet the most dangerous boss in the city. The address on the email led you to an imposing skyscraper in the middle of the city. The reception desk was manned by a stern woman who barely glanced up before motioning you towards an elevator. "Top floor," she said curtly. As the elevator doors opened, a sharp-eyed man in a black suit stood waiting. He gave you a quick once-over and nodded. "Follow me." You barely had time to mutter a confused word, "Sure," before you were being led down a corridor lined with security cameras. At the end of the hallway was a door that screamed, "Do not enter," in every possible way. The man opened it and you stepped into a room straight out of a gangster movie. Dark leather furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows, and an intimidating man sitting behind a desk that looked like it weighed more than your entire apartment. He looked insanely handsome, but his presence screamed danger. Tattoos peeked out from under his shirt sleeves, his sharp jawline and piercing gaze making your stomach flip. "This is John Jungkook," he said, bringing you back from your thoughts. You blinked, trying not to gape and say, "Why does he look like he could murder someone with a paperclip?" "And you are?" Jungkook asked, his voice low and smooth but carrying an edge that sent chills down your spine. "She's your new anger manager," the secretary declared. You tried to force a smile and only said, "Yeah, I'm vying your anger." That's when you realized what he said. You looked at Mark, furrowing your brows in confusion. "Me, what?" Jungkook raised an eyebrow, clearly as unimpressed with you as you were confused. You didn't know what you were applying for. I thought it was like a personal assistant job." You stammered, your brain struggling to process the words "anger manager." The secretary sighed dramatically. "We have had issues with Mr. John's temper. You'll be helping him manage it." You turned to him, incredulous. "Is that even a thing? I've never heard of an anger manager before." "It is now," Jungkook interjected. His tone was sharp as he didn't like how lightly you were taking it. You blinked at him, then back at the secretary. "Wait, so my job is to what? Tell him to count to 10 when he's mad?" You asked, half joking, half terrified. The secretary's lips curved into a tight, almost pitying smile. "Oh, no, miss. This isn't that kind of job. You'll understand soon enough just how serious this is." "Serious? Serious how? Are we talking about a regular anger management thing or?" Jungkook was observing you and the way you were literally making fun of him. "Miss," he interrupted, stepping closer as if to hammer the point. "Mr. John has thrown desks out of windows. He once broke a solid wood table in half with his bare hands. Last month he sent 3 grown men running out of the building crying." Your jaw dropped. "Crying?" "They were armed," he added dryly, glancing at Jungkook, who seemed entirely too relaxed during this unsettling conversation. "I feel like I should leave," you muttered, taking a cautious step backward. "No, you stay," he said, making you flinch. You turned to him, your heart pounding. "Look, I think there has been a misunderstanding. I'm not qualified for this. I don't even know where to begin." He smirked, leaning back in his chair like he found your panic amusing. "You begin by not running away." His secretary crossed his arms, watching you like a hawk. "We have already had 5 people quit this position in the last 2 months. Mr. John personally approved your resume. If you want to keep this job, and frankly your life, I suggest you take it seriously." Your eyes widened. "My life?" Relax, Jungkook said, his voice carrying a dangerous edge. I don't hurt people who are useful to me. Oh, great. What a comforting thought, you muttered under your breath. Jungkook chuckled, clearly entertained by her sarcasm. I think this is going to be fun. For who? You shot back before you could stop yourself. The room went dead silent. The secretary's eyes widened slightly, and the security guard outside the door peeked in like he was ready to intervene. Jungkook stared at you for a moment, then smirked. For me. You spend the rest of the day shadowing Jungkook, trying to figure out what the hell an anger manager actually did. During a meeting, when he yelled at one of his men for being 2 minutes late to a meeting, you tentatively stabbed in because you were terrified he would do something to that man as he looked insanely mad. Oh no, maybe we can let this one slide. Jungkook turned his glare on you and you nearly fainted. And can you tell me why should I let it slide? He dared to break the rules. Because stress isn't good for your health, you said, forcing a smile. He raised an eyebrow and looked at you for a minute, making your skin crawl. Is that your professional opinion? Yep, you said, nodding rapidly. Totally professional. The room fell silent again, and for a moment you were sure you were about to lose your job, or worse. But then Jungkook smirked, leaning back in his chair. Fine, I'll let it slide. You exhaled a breath you didn't realize you were holding as everyone in the room stared at you like you had just tamed a wild beast. They were surprised how you managed to calm him when it was near to impossible. The secretary gave you a small nod of approval as he passed. Not bad for your first day. Let's see if you last the week. You winked at him, flipping your hair slightly, making him chuckle. Handling Jungkook was literally a task, you realized, when he was ready to burst anytime. Still, you heard whispers from people discussing how much his anger had reduced since the first day you joined. You couldn't believe that, but you also noticed he calms down easily when you are around, and you try to make him smile whenever you get a chance. Over time, your ridiculous method started to work. Whenever Jungkook looked ready to snap, you would appear with a stress ball, a ridiculous joke, or some candy to distract him. His anger was curing without much efforts now, as he was getting addicted to your presence around him. Why do you always carry candy? He asked. His tone was curious instead of annoyed for once. Because no one can be mad while eating chocolate. You replied confidently, handing him a piece. To your surprise, he chuckled. It was quiet, almost imperceptible, but it was a laugh nonetheless. You are weird, he said, shaking his head. And you're not at all scary. I don't know why everyone thinks you're something. You shot back with a grin, making him look at you in disbelief. It was a slow afternoon, and you were attempting to print out a stack of documents Jungkook had requested, except as usual, the office printer had other ideas. Come on, you stupid piece of junk. You muttered, jabbing the buttons with increasing frustration. The screen kept flashing some cryptic error message as if it enjoyed watching you suffer. After a few more failed attempts, you snapped. That's it. You stepped back and delivered a swift kick to the side of the printer. It whirred loudly, mocking you with a refusal to cooperate. Work, or I swear I'll... You kicked it again, harder this time, muttering a stream of complaints under your breath. You should kick it harder if you really want to break it. You froze mid-kick, your heart leaping into your throat. Slowly you turned around to find Jungkook leaning casually against the doorway, his arms crossed and a smirk tugging at his lips. Oh, hi boss, you said nervously, trying to cover your embarrassment with a strained smile. Interesting technique, he said, nodding towards the printer. Didn't realize my anger manager needed an anger manager of her own. You laughed awkwardly, scratching the back of your head. It's not what it looks like. I was just testing its durability. Testing its durability? He said, raising an eyebrow. Yeah, making sure it's sturdy enough for all the work it has to handle. He walked closer, his smirk deepening. And is it sturdy enough? You glanced at the printer, then back at him. Not really, you might want to invest in something less temperamental like me. Jungkook chuckled, a rare, genuine sound that sent your heart racing for reasons you refuse to examine too closely. Noted. Next time you feel like kicking something, let me know. I'll show you how it's done. You swallowed hard, trying to ignore how effortlessly cool he looked even when teasing you. I think I'll stick to less violent methods from now on. Good idea, though I have to admit it's entertaining to see you lose your temper for a change. As he walked away, you stared after him, cheeks burning. Great, you muttered under your breath. Now he thinks I'm just as bad as he is. The printer beeped, finally coming back to life. You glared at it. Traitor. It didn't take long for Jungkook to realize that his new anger manager had anger issues of her own. The irony was not lost on him. In fact, he seemed to find it hilarious. The office elevator was notoriously slow, and today was no exception. After waiting for what felt like an eternity, you finally snapped. Stupid, useless box of metal. You yelled, slapping the elevator button repeatedly. How hard is it to move up and down? Jungkook appeared behind you, arms crossed and an amused smirk on his face. Do you yell at all inanimate objects or just the ones in my building? You turned to him flustered. It's not my fault this thing takes forever. He sighed, stepping closer and pressing the button gently. Miraculously, the elevator dinged and opened. How? What? You said, looking surprised. Patience, maybe you should try it sometime. You glared at him, says the guy who threw a chair out of the window last week. Touchy, he admitted, stepping into the elevator. Now, different rumors started inside the building. The once known for his anger issues Mafia boss was left shocked by his own anger manager's anger issues, and now his anger issues vanished, leaving him handling the one who was supposed to handle his anger issues. Jungkook was laughing, looking at you as he saw earlier. You kicked the table in anger and hurt your own leg. You know, he said between chuckles, I think you are worse than me. Worse than you? You are the one who threw a table last week. And you are the one who almost kicked the printer to death, and then the elevator. He shot back, grinning. You paused, considering his point. Fine, maybe we are equally bad. Equally? He asked, raising an eyebrow. Okay, maybe I'm a tiny bit worse. Jungkook smirked, shaking his head. I think I've officially become your anger manager. I told you I'm not qualified for this job, but I think your anger vanished seeing mine. He chuckled because it was true. It was a regular Wednesday when things took a rather chaotic turn. A client stormed into the office, red-faced and seething. His voice was already booming before he even stepped into the conference room. Where's the report? He shouted, slamming a file down onto the table. I demand answers right now. Who is in charge here? The poor employee assigned to handle him looked like she was about to have a panic attack. She kept apologizing, offering excuses, but the client wasn't having any of it. Are you kidding me? I've been waiting for days and this is the kind of service I get? You people are useless. You happened to be passing by the room, your usual bubbly self, when you heard the commotion. You poked your head inside, ready to offer a little cheer and see what was going on. But when you saw the client throwing a tantrum like a child who didn't get his way, you couldn't help but frown. Excuse me? You said, walking in with your bright smile. Sir, please, there's no need to shout. The client whipped around, his face twisted in anger. Who do you think you are? I'm paying for a service and I won't tolerate being ignored. The poor employee at the desk visibly cringed, looking at you like you just volunteered for the impossible task of dealing with him. You gave her a reassuring smile before turning back to the angry client. Sir, I understand you are upset, but shouting isn't going to help the situation. You remained calm and collected, trying to handle the situation with diplomacy, but the client wasn't listening. He was pacing the room now, practically frothing at the mouth, yelling about his rights and how this was unacceptable. You took a deep breath, keeping a tight grip on your patience. You gave the employee another look and she quickly backed away, clearly relieved to have someone take over. Okay. You muttered under your breath, taking one step closer to the man. Let's try this one, sir. If you keep shouting. Before you could finish your sentence, the client interrupted with an even louder, more obnoxious yell. That's it. You snapped, your patience finally breaking. You've crossed the line, you piece of. His eyes widened, including others, and they knew he's gone now. By now, all are aware of your temper once you lose it. I've had enough of this. If you think I'm going to stand here and listen to you shout like a child, you are sadly mistaken. I've got my own problems, buddy, so you can either calm the heck down and had a civil conversation, or I can show you what happens when you push my buttons. I demand respect. Do you even know who I am? Oh, I know who you are. You are a grown man who clearly never learned basic manners. You think signing a service contract gives you the right to treat people like dirt? Guess what? It doesn't. By now, the entire office had gathered outside the glass conference room, staring in shock. Some employees looked horrified, others seemed ready to cheer you on. As you pointed an accusing finger at the client, Jungkook appeared in the doorway, his usual cold demeanor faltered for a split second as he took in the scene. You red-faced and fuming, ready to lunge at the poor guy while the man cowered in his seat, unsure whether to fight or flee. Why? Jungkook said, his deep voice cutting through the tension like a knife. You didn't even look at him, your anger too far gone. No, Jungkook, don't try to stop me. You yelled, your voice echoing in the silent room. This jerk thinks he owns everyone here just because he signed up for a service. The client opened his mouth to defend himself, but you silenced him with a glare so fierce it could melt steel. I'll teach him what respect looks like. You declared, rolling up your sleeves as if preparing for battle. Jungkook raised an eyebrow and stepped inside, standing directly in your path. Why? Step away from the client. No, you snapped, pointing dramatically at the man. He needs to be taught a lesson. Jungkook sighed and grabbed your shoulders gently but firmly, pulling you back. All right, Hal, calm down, he said, his lips twitching in amusement. Let me go, Jungkook. You protested, wriggling against his hold. This isn't over. He thinks he's better than us just because he has money. Why? Jungkook interrupted, holding back a laugh as he turned you to face him. Let me deal with him. He stepped in front of you, blocking your view of the client. He turned to the man whose bravado was clearly shrinking with every passing second. Jungkook's gaze was icy, but his tone was surprisingly calm. Leave now, he ordered. His voice was so commanding the entire room went silent. The client, seeing the heat radiating from Jungkook, nodded quickly, backing out of the room without another word. The door slammed shut behind him. You crossed your arms, trying to compose yourself, but you couldn't hide the smirk that tugged at your lips. See, problem solved. Jungkook shook his head, clearly fighting back laughter. You're supposed to be my anger manager, not start a fight club in the office. I was doing my job. Someone has to stand up to him. Sure, but next time, maybe try standing up with words instead of trying to break his spirit and possibly his nose. You rolled your eyes but couldn't help a small smile. Fine, but if he comes back, you are dealing with him. Jungkook chuckled, shaking his head. Deal, but only if you promise to keep your fist to yourself. No promises. You replied cheekily, and the sound of Jungkook's deep laughter filled the room, much to the surprise of everyone watching. As months passed, you became indispensable to Jungkook. Not just as his anger specialist, but as someone who saw the man behind the title. And for you, the dangerous Mafia boss became less terrifying and more irresistible. It had been another long, chaotic day in the underworld Jungkook ruled, and as usual, you found yourself in his office cleaning up the mess, this time quite literally. He sat at the edge of his desk, his shirt rolled up to his elbows, revealing a nasty cut across his hand. Hold still, you muttered, carefully dabbing antiseptic on the wound. Honestly, Jungkook, do you even think before you get into these fights? He smirked, his dark eyes fixed on your concentrated expression. Occupational hazard. More like stubborn hazard. You shot back, pressing the bandage into place. Do you ever stop talking? He teased, though there was no malice in his voice. Do you ever stop getting hurt? You said, giving him a pointed look. He chuckled softly, his gaze softened as he watched you work. I guess not. Not when you are here to patch me up. You paused, your hand hovering over his. There was something in his voice, something vulnerable, that made your heart stutter. Jungkook, you said quietly, looking up at him. You really should take better care of yourself. What would you do if I weren't here? His smirk faded, replaced by a serious expression that made your stomach flip. I don't like thinking about that. You blinked, startled by the sudden change in his tone. What do you mean? He took a deep breath as if gathering his courage. I mean, I don't need an anger manager. I never did. You frowned, confused. Yes, now you'll say that I didn't perform the job like I should. And is that why you were saying I've been doing all this work for nothing? He smiled, the corners of his eyes crinkling in that way that always made your heart skip a beat. No, what I'm saying is, I didn't need someone to manage my anger. I needed you. The room seemed to go completely still. You stared at him, your heart thundering in your chest. Jungkook? I didn't realize it at first, but you changed everything, Ryan. You saw me, the real me, when everyone else just saw the title, the danger. You're not scared of me. You argue with me, challenges me, and somehow you make all of this chaos feel normal. Your hands trembled slightly as you rested them in your lap. So you're saying I have been driving you crazy in a whole new way? You asked, your voice teasing but soft. He let out a quiet laugh, his dark eyes shining with affection. Exactly, you have been driving me crazy, Vine, in the best way possible. You felt tears prick at the corner of your eyes, but you blinked them away, managing a wobbly smile. Jungkook, you're an absolute menace. You know that, right? Yeah, but I'm your menace if you'll have me. Your chest tightened at the raw vulnerability in his gaze. Slowly you reached out, your fingers brushing against his. Jungkook, I've been yours since the day you made me chase you down the hallway for smashing that vase in a rage. He laughed, the sound deep and warm, and you couldn't help but laugh with him. Then it settled. He said, leaning closer, you'll keep patching me up, and I'll keep trying not to give you more grey hairs. Deal, you whispered, your voice catching as his hand cupped your cheek, and when his lips met yours, it felt like the most unnatural thing in the world, like you both finally found the calm in each other's storms.